Hello, Liali. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Thomas Fischermann. I work for a German weekly newspaper called Die Zeit, which means time. And I've been an editor with them for quite a long time. I've been a correspondent to London, to the London city. I've been to New York. I was a bureau chief there. And I went to Hamburg, was an editor for economics for about 6 years. And now, since April of this year, I'm the new South America correspondent for Die Zeit in Rio de Janeiro, where you meet me now. So your big question is the internet going to kill off journalism? And the big answer is, I don't know. Because there are two quite opposing streams. Of course, what Nick Carr wrote in his book, that a lot of journalists are getting laid off because of the internet, is completely true. So let's take it from there. The old business model of newspapers and of journals and of magazines does mostly no longer hold, because it was based on selling a publication on a periodical basis and then taking money from advertisement, printing advertisement there. With the internet came a huge stream of advertisement that reached people where they now are, which is more on the internet than in front of a periodical publication. And so the whole business model does no longer work as it should. It still works. There are still magazines and newspapers, such as mine, for example, that manage to work in these times, but I don't know for how long. So definitely there's less money circulating. Journalists are being laid off, and this is very bad for journalism, for the quality of journalism, for the quantity of journalism that is supplied, and I think for the reader. Now, the internet is not the only reason for this. The other reason came with the late 1990s and the early millennial years, and it was that all the publishers, or most of the publishers, and many companies that owned the publishing houses were suddenly demanding much more money than before. They want profitable businesses, and they have no patience with a business that does no longer make money. Now, this is quite distinct from the internet. It is a development that came about at about the same time as the internet became very strong, but it is a very, very separate development. Still, it is very influential. Nowadays, when you don't make a profit, you die as a newspaper. In former times, a lot of publications, a lot of very famous publications, lived off other people's money, or they lived off the money of their publishers, who would also sell comic strips, or who would also have a profitable TV show, or who would sell magazines with naked ladies on top of their quality journalism. So none of this is tolerated anymore in these times. It's not all the internet. In Germany, for example, we just had this example that the Financial Times closed. Financial Times in Germany closed. It was a publication co-sponsored and co-run by the British Pearson Group and by a German group called Bertelsmann, which is a very big publishing house. And they closed the publication simply because it was a financial publication. It did not make much money anymore. Financial news as such is nowadays very easily retrieved off the internet, and so down the Financial Times went. Now we are left with two major other financial data. So there is a lot on the internet that can actually help journalists do their work better and inform their readers much better, as long as we find somebody who is willing to pay for the work they do. Think of data journalism, the completely new way of finding out things and linking information that's out there on the internet, and that has brought about completely new insights, for example, on police behavior in New York City, on the spreading of epidemics around the world, on certain bribe issues in political scandals, and it has brought about new insights about all kinds of tax evasion scandals. So we are onto something here. The internet is helping us make better journalism. Think about the way that journalists themselves can structure their work much better. I, for example, use Evernote, as pretty much all of the world does now, to just have a completely paperless and mobile way of taking notes and gathering and collecting all my information, and I don't need a paper archive anymore. So all of these are forms of progress which will make journalism much better, again, if journalism survives. So what we actually see here is a whole new world of research opportunities for journalists if we find somebody to pay for their work in the end. People have also often commented, and I think Nick Carr is one of those who does so, that the user comments are pretty stupid on the internet, and that the debate that you have on online websites and on websites run by newspapers and other publications are pretty shallow. And I guess that's true overall, although some of the written submissions by readers can also be pretty, well, head-scratching material. But overall, I have received a lot of interesting feedback from readers, and some of that feedback is constructive in the sense of you should do this, you should do that, or I see this in a different way, this is an interesting debate. And some of the feedback has been critical in the sense that facts were corrected, or things that I had seen in a particular way were seen in a different way by our readers, and this actually attributed to the present and future accuracy of my article. So I treasure this. It's not always a good experience. Most feedback on the internet is critical. I think that's a style question partly. Then again, journalists themselves have never prided themselves in being not critical, so we have to take it when it comes from the other side. So I don't have a problem with this. There's a lot of feedback, and it does improve on my work, even if it sometimes hurts. A very good side of the internet. And just as a last point about what the internet may do, there are now institutions that finance journalistic activities, like small groups that collect money, Kickstarter style, for journalistic projects, and especially for investigative journalistic projects. Basically, readers say, we want to give money to this journalist because we trust him, we want to give money to this research project by a journalist. I'm not sure that this will ever make up for the laws in other areas, but it is an interesting and good new development. A lot of people, including Nick Carr, do not like the fact that journalists and their editors now no longer control the stream of information that goes from us, the journalists, to the informed public. And I may be overstating Nick's point a little bit, but it's basically the very elitist point that people in an editorial office or in a newspaper that read the newspapers, that filter the news every day, that are in contact with politicians and with economic actors, that they know better. And do they really know better? Yes, I think we do know better. What's interesting, what's relevant, what's going to change the future of the readers involved. But then again, there's nothing to be said against a competition in this field. There's nothing to be said against an editorial team like ours, producing news, producing background analysis, and saying, hey, this is our brand. This is what the site says is most important this week. This is what we think about it. This is the background we would like to present you, and that's that. And then people can go on the internet and can go into any other publication and say, okay, we believe the people of the site that they mean well, but we do not trust them completely. We want our own information, we want other standpoints, and we go to blogs, we go to other publications, we go to the sources themselves, and we inform ourselves. The effect on cognition is the last thing that you wanted me to talk about a little. And I must say I'm at loss with this point. I hear this a lot. I have myself, with a colleague, written a very critical book about the internet. It was called Zeitbombe Internet, which translates into the internet time bomb. But we had a completely different approach. We said that the infrastructure that's now being built on the internet will not longer hold. We will perhaps need a better internet, a better functioning internet. The present internet is too old-fashioned to withstand. That was our point. But we never ever claimed that the internet would make us stupid, because it is not making us stupid. It's a bit of an old fogey argument. In Britain, there was once an admiral at sea who, when the mail, the sea mail and the land mail, the postal mail was introduced, claimed that this would wreak havoc with our brains, that if one was able to receive a written letter every week, that we could no longer have a chance to produce any response to it, that we were overloaded, that our brains would be exploding because there was too much information and too little time on contemplation. And we've heard that same argument over and over again with every new communication technology that came up, and now it's the internet's turn. Now, there are dangers of information overload. There also are dangers of internet junkiism. The internet can be a drug. There are a lot of people who are hooked on Facebook, who are hooked on their mobile phones, and who are hooked on surfing the web instead of doing other things. But I have to say that most of the people, or pretty much all of the people who have that problem, are 40 or 50 years old. So it's a generational problem. That generation which grew up with other kinds of media has apparently not learned to be distant enough from that new medium, while people who are much younger, who are 18, 19 years old, they very much know how to juggle Facebook, the information on their mobile phones, and all the other information that's available to them. They do juggle multiple media at the same time. I'm not saying they're all doing it well, and people always still have to learn, but they are already doing it much better than my friends who are Facebook junkies and who are of Nicholas Carr's age. So I don't think there's a general problem there, but there has to be a learning process, and I believe that learning process needs to be on both sides. It needs to be on the side of the users, because the users have to know when to know when to say no. They have to know when to switch things off. They have to know which information to trust and which information to not trust, and that's a process. And I believe the providers of such information, of such services, will also learn that this is necessary, and they are learning. Compare the advertisement on Google, compare the advertisement on Facebook to the advertisement in the days of those who are of my generation or of the generation of Nick.